Hi, this is Hannah Cruz at the Church Musician's Assistant. Today is day 3 in our process of writing a choral descant and keyboard accompaniment to go with it. Today's step is envisioning your descant. I say envision because we're not quite ready to actually write the descant. We're just going to do some things to plan out our descant and make sure that it's going to really complement and heighten the melody. So let's get into it. First, let's go ahead and decide the range of our descant. Let's go back to the climax that we marked earlier on day 1. That's right here where this star is. The altos will be singing the melody here on the F. And so what's the highest possible note that we could reach in the climax? Well, that's dependent on 2 things. One is how far you can reach with your right hand, because remember, on the organ or piano, you'll have to play the F as well as your descant note. And the second thing that determines it is how high your sopranos can sing. So I like to think that G or A is probably the max for most church choir sopranos. So, and a ninth, F to G, is all that I can reach. I have small hands. So we're going to say G can potentially be our highest point there. Look at the beginning then and figure out, well, what note do we want to start on with this descant? A good place to start, if you're overwhelmed by the options, is the same note as the melody, or somewhere quite close to the melody note. I say pick a close note because sometimes when you're coming out of another verse, if you suddenly play a very high note, it might confuse the congregation, and they could come in higher than they're supposed to. So if you keep the descant relatively close to the melody note, you'll be safe. So we're just going to say G. We'll start on the same note as the melody. Then we go to the end and figure out, well, do we want to build up or maybe bring the mood of this descant down a bit? And in this instance, I think we want to relax the mood a bit because of how the verse ends. The text, through cloud and sunshine, Lord, abide with me. It's restful, right? So how about we end on G again? A nice, beautiful third above the final note. Now we have our complete range, G to G. Now I have written out the melody on a new piece of paper, and you may be wondering, what the heck are those squiggly lines? Well, this is my next step. It's an idea for you. I suppose you don't have to do this, but it works for me because I'm a primarily visual person. So what I've done is I've put my marks, the climax marks and the stagnant marks down, and I notated our start note, G, here, as well as our climax note, G, here, and final note, also G. So we've got 3 points determined for the descant. And now what I like to do is draw in the general shape that I'm thinking for the descant. And the shape helps you see where there is movement in the melody and how the descant can contrast with that movement or stagnancy. So I start here at the beginning and the descant is moving up, and then we got a big leap here in the melody, that very dramatic leap of a fifth, and so I'm going to keep the descant stagnant above it. You can see that. And then in measure 3, again, fairly stagnant because the melody has quite a bit of movement. But on measure 4, where the little X is, where it becomes stagnant again on the long note, I've got the descant moving around quite a bit, okay? So it's coming down and then going up and coming down. On measure 5, the melody is moving up, and so the descant has to move up as well. All right, so we keep going, and I wanted the descant to come up here. This measure, the melody is moving a lot, and there's a harmonic dissonance, so the descant will remain fairly stagnant, not to overcomplicate that measure. Here's our mini climax. So I want there to be a nice swell of movement in the descant. Okay, and after that mini climax, we'll bring it back down a bit in range so we can build for the real climax later. Okay, here we go, and we're building up to the tippity top with that G. We've got a nice downward motion of the descant. So after all of that building and after that glorious climax, I'd like the descant to remain fairly still. So on this last line, just gonna let it rest on one note for a little while until one last little swell, and it's going to relax back down to that third above the melody. What we've done today is planning out the shape of our descant. We've determined the range that our descant will encompass, our starting note, our ending note, our climax note, and we've given it shape. So tomorrow we're going to move on to actually writing the notes. Yay, that's the goal, right? Before you X out of this video though today, I'd like you to comment below and firstly tell me, how did this process go for you? The whole drawing the shape of your descant thing. Did that work for you? Did it sort of show you a new perspective or not? And also, what has been your biggest hurdle so far in this process? What can I clarify or help you with? So please comment those things below, and hopefully I will see you again tomorrow for day 4. Bye.